Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my husband drive my son to school with his step-siblings anymore? Context: my ex-husband and I have custody of our 11-year-old son. He's diabetic, and since his diagnosis is relatively new, we're still working on managing things for him so he could continue to live a normal life just like other kids. His stepdad is responsible for dropping him off and picking him up from school since his step-siblings attend the same school. The issue began when my son started asking me or his biological dad to take him to school instead of his stepdad. He said the reason for that is because his step-siblings open his lunchbox and take all the additional snacks that he needs in case he had a hypoglycemic episode. That's what we call low blood sugar. His step-siblings would take his lunchbox from him and take the snacks and only leave him his sandwich and water. His stepdad thinks there's nothing wrong with us sharing, although I explained to him about 1,000,000 times how important his snacks are. He promised that he won't let his kids touch my son's lunchbox from now on, and I believed him. Days ago, my son came home and told me his step-siblings took his snacks from his lunchbox again. I was enraged. I asked if his stepdad saw them. He said yes, and he scolded him when he refused to let them have the snacks. I lost it. I blew up at my husband and told him that my son won't be riding in his car again with his step-siblings after what they'd done, and after he allowed it. I told him that my son's father will be driving him to and from school from now on. He lashed at me saying that I was driving a wedge between the kids and teaching my son to grow up being selfish and self-centered and antisocial, and also making my son distant from him and getting him to favor his biological dad. I refused to discuss it. Now he's acting all hurt and disrespected, saying it was not worth ruining the kids' relationship over some snacks. Edited, his argument is that I don't get his kids the same amount of snacks I get for my son. They go through their snacks in no time. In my defense, I said that the snacks are part of my son's diabetes management routine and he, unlike his step-siblings, needs them anytime. And so I don't feel like I'm obligated, or that I should buy his step-siblings the same amount of snacks, seeing that they can do without them for a while. Am I making sense here? Edited 2, my stepchildren's ages are 13 and 10. Unless your husband has some kind of rare cognitive impairment that means he doesn't understand the meaning of medical condition, he's the one who's the a-hole here, not you. As a longtime Reddit fan, my first instinct is, of course, to suggest dumping him, but I'm trying to curb that instinct. Not the a-hole. And maybe it's time to have a conversation with your husband about possibly modifying the custody arrangements for your son, because he is neglecting the boy's very real medical needs in a way that can have very dire health consequences. Also, taking all of something is not sharing. Modify the custody arrangements? How about modifying the marriage arrangements? You're the a-hole for exposing your son to your husband who has no regard for him or his medical condition. Do the right thing and get a divorce and your son away from this toxicity. Yeah, people say Reddit is too quick to jump to divorce, but in my opinion, endangering a child isn't really a 3-strike rule. Honestly, I wouldn't blame someone if they didn't even offer a second chance. Why? Because every chance you give them is a chance they can make your diabetic son sick. He's twice proved he doesn't care about his stepson's health. Not the a-hole, holy mother of all incomprehensible fricks. It is medical. Your partner refuses to teach his own kids and takes it out on your kid who is the victim in this. If your partner can't take responsibility in making sure your child is well taken care of, as you do for his children, you should really reconsider where you are standing in this relationship, in my opinion. Truly. The real question is OP the a-hole for staying with a man who puts her son in danger medically? Besides allowing his kids to bully and steal from her kid, of course. Like life as a parent of a newly diagnosed diabetic isn't difficult enough. Not the a-hole. If it's not worth ruining the relationship between them, he should stop them. His hurt reaction is infuriating. Your child's health is the most important thing, not his feelings on being held accountable. It's not antisocial to take care of your health. What ridiculous excuses. A newly diagnosed diabetic child has major daily responsibility and everyone should be supporting him, helping him to stay safe and healthy and learn these habits. That's a good family dynamic to foster, not ignoring his condition. It's incredibly dangerous to disregard it. Oh, and it's not sharing when you take the items, that's stealing. If I were the biological dad and found out about this, I'd already be talking to a lawyer about custody changes because this is unacceptable and you are not making a big enough deal about the fact that this is putting your child's health at risk. I have a sneaking suspicion that if the husband does step in and stop his kids now that it'll come with some pissy remark to throw his wife under the bus. Sorry kids, you can't share with OP's son anymore because your stepmom is a jerk. What? Not the a-hole. Sharing is a two-way system. It's not sharing if one person says no, it's theft. Your husband is raising his kids to think stealing from a person with a health condition is just fine. It sounds like your husband doesn't understand your son's condition. Does he just think you're giving your son too many fun snacks? Perhaps ask him if he'd encourage his children to steal an inhaler from a kid with asthma. Perhaps ask him if he'd encourage his children to steal an inhaler from a kid with asthma. You know, people are weird about food sometimes and don't recognize that dietary needs equals medical needs for some people. Especially the idea that someone with type 1 diabetes might need sugary snacks if they have low blood sugar. Tell him you'll reconsider when he sits down with you and the stepkids and explains to them that their selfish actions are endangering your son's life, and if they keep doing it then they will obviously be attempting to kill him. And if he doesn't phrase it like that then he isn't taking it seriously. Agree with this and follow it up with, if he refuses to take this seriously then you need to protect your son by leaving. His health is more important. Not the a-hole. Your husband is willing to chance letting your son have a hypoglycemic episode. Your husband is encouraging other children steal your son's lunch. Your son is afraid to be driven to school by your husband. Read those back to yourself. Consider what your responsibilities are as a parent to keep your child safe from harm, physical, emotional, and mental. You've made a good choice not to let your husband drive him to school anymore, and now you need to take an observer's stance and see if this sort of behavior is also happening in other situations. Not the a-hole. Your son's safety is more important than your husband's ego and need to use his position of power as an adult to harm your child. What are your thoughts? Comment down below.